So for me, it's a simple. It's not a simple situation. It's Texas is a complex animal, and this is what led to it. In the state of Texas, there is no TDLR does not regulate roofers. Anyone can be a roofer. Um, I mean, anyone can be a roofer. And so, uh, RCAT's done a good job of creating their own licensing inside of their association to give some consumer protection, some comfort in who they're hiring, and then they make you take a test. Like there's a test to prove that you can put a roof on, and we can get into that topic later and about how much a roof costs versus how much it costs to wire a home or to plumb a house. They're very big different numbers, and the roof is usually more. And it protects a whole lot more. And there's a lot more. To me, it's on the same level. Um, but there is none of that, and so right now, roughly, we think there's about 10,000 roofers in Dallas-Fort Worth. And we're only able to gauge that number by kind of sort of what's registered through the BBB on the Tarrant County and the Dallas County side. And I may have that number off. I'm shooting from the hip on it, but it's a big number.
Yeah,
a really big number.
6,000, 8,000, 10,000, all. Yeah, it's a big number.
It's a really big number, and that's the only reason. And that's the only way we know. So, with that said, we have some issues that always seem to occur when the hailstorm shows up. There's guys that are just trying to start a business and be a roofer, and they give it away. You go back to that 5.5 of 95 storm that I talked about earlier, and people in Texas had a $200, $250 deductible. Insurance companies wrote a check with no depreciation taken out of it, none of that. No mortgage companies wrote a check less the deductible, and what's $250? And hell, 30 years ago, whatever it was, that's a lot of money. 35 years ago, whatever it was, that's a lot of money. However, it just created this domino effect with the deductible, and created layers and layers and layers of issues that I just have still to this day continue to see compound after the storm occurs. And it's guys trying to be creative, trying to get a marketing edge, but they're breaking the law. But in 2017, we didn't have anything, right? And it was the storm that hit Allen in 17. And there's a street that I have roofed almost every house in that entire street in the 75013 zip code 4 times, now 5 since 2009. But there's this one customer that was not a customer. There's just one resident that lives in between 2 of my customers who was just a filthy, nasty woman in the way that she conducted her business. And so it was 2017. I was there on the street, and she said, she said, "Hey, RJ, I need to talk to you. Come over here and talk to me." And I was like, "All right." So I go over and she goes, "You want my business?" And I said, "Sure." She goes, "Well, this is what it's going to take. I'm not paying my deductible. I want to put some money in my pocket. I want a flat screen TV, and I want to be entered in the drawing for your cruise." That's almost verbatim what she said. And I was like, "Well, wait a minute. What about this cruise? Like, am I going on the cruise? Like, tell me about this cruise." And she said, "Well, 2 of the other guys here are talking about a cruise, and a couple of the other guys are giving away flat screen TVs, and I'm not paying my deductible, and I expect to put a little cash in my pocket. I make good on these hail claims every time they come through." And I walked away pissed off. I mean, I walked away just pissed off. And I decided there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a different way. Because this is just plumb ridiculous trying to fight this game where, it's a race to the bottom. You're cutting out all the profits of the job. You're not running a good business. And being around as long as I have, and I haven't been around as long as some of these guys. Some of these guys have been around for 50 years. But I was fortunate enough to get to be mentored by some of these guys early on. The Chris Sazos, the Mike Huddlestons, Brett Hall, some of these guys, Dan Pitts. I mean, I've had a chance to, learn from them. They always told me, like, if you're going to waive the deductible, you ain't gonna be in business very long. You can't afford to stay in business if you do that. And so that was kind of, my groundwork into that world. And so I just said, there's got to be a better way. Why am I going to fight with these guys that are all going to be out of business in a year or two or three? And most of them are. They come and go. Roofing businesses seem to just come and go. So I started looking, and I spent a lot of time. I was very methodical. I looked in Minneapolis. I looked in Kansas City, Omaha, and Lincoln area. I looked in Nashville, and I looked in Charlotte. And it came down to a couple different angles. One of them was the cost of television and television marketing. Minnesota was higher than a kite. Charlotte was higher than a kite. And then flights out of DFW to get me to where I needed to be and access and all that kind of stuff. And then I also wanted there to be some form of licensing. I wanted to go take a test and do the, see what it was like in a different market. And so there it is. I chose Kansas City. Kansas City's TV costs were a fraction of what it was in Dallas, Fort Worth. I had to take a test, which was the Johnson County test. It's an ICC exam. And then have to be registered. You got to pay your taxes. You don't get to waive the deductible. It's against the law. I mean, there's a whole structure there. And it's not a big structure. It's not like it's just regulated heavily by the state. It's the way it was. And we chose Kansas City. The deciding factor for Kansas City, the final deciding factor, I had some friends that lived there, and they had a basement. That's foreign to us in Texas. And so I lived in their basement the first year that we were there, opening this office and getting this office off the ground.